a good way to think about it could also be a tree. Okay, if the seeds of that tree are all the colors of foods, right? And then the main bulk of that tree, the trunk, is your macronutrients. Now you take the trunk and the branches are your different food groups. And all of a sudden the leaves and the things that come off of those branches are the different ways to prepare your foods, right? If I took away any section of those tree leaves, that's taking away fermented foods. If I don't eat meats, all right, well, I just took out a food group. Okay, I don't get enough of this macronutrient. I just cut the tree trunk in half. I don't eat any of these colors, or I'm imbalanced in colors. Does that look like a flourishing tree?
Good afternoon, friends. PC here with Dylan Foss at Gravity and Oxygen Fitness with you for the 612th edition of Turf Talk Tuesday. We are here talking about food and nutrition. Always the awkward elephant in the room, is it not, D?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
And it's only fitting as we begin our noble 30-day challenge to our membership of no added sugars, no alcohol, no processed foods. Coming up this Saturday, we talk about nutrition. And who better to talk about it than my man Dylan, who has his master's in nutrition, talking about something he created called the food ecosystem. And I'm excited to learn about it myself and also present that to you guys.
Cool.
Let it go, buddy.
Yeah, so the food ecosystem. I like to think of ecosystems, and just anything we do in general has to kind of emulate what happens in nature naturally, right? So with that being said, if you think about the ecosystem of maybe the ocean, right? And you start to see that certain populations or species, whether it's plants or animals in the ocean, start to go too high or too low, it throws off the ecosystem, right?
How about them cutting down trees in the rainforest of the Amazon?
Absolutely.
It affects all the animals that live there, and you think of the circle of life of the animal cycle, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can see that ecosystems are a big part of our everyday life, more so than we think of it. And as a result, you might have different weather patterns because of something like taking trees down, right? Because something like the shade that trees provide keeps the cool ground. Now all of a sudden that changes ground temperature, more precipitation, and boom, all of a sudden this huge ecosystem. The same thing is happening right inside of our gut. We have an ecosystem of bacteria. We're made up of more bacteria than we are human cells. So when I think of the ecosystem, I think of, well, what do we put inside of our bodies, right? And a lot of it comes from nature.
Right.
So obviously it emulates that.
I think it's important to note that you as the viewer watching this video early, that we're not necessarily talking about how the actual earth is affecting our food chain and our food sources. It's more about you individually and how you're affecting your own personal ecosystem with the food you eat internally.
Yes, how your food choices are affecting your internal ecosystem, right? So that internal ecosystem affects hormones, it affects emotions, and all of those different things that externally get put back out into the world, the circle of life, as he alluded to. So the food ecosystem, if you want to come in a little bit more, there's four main parts that I broke it down into. Within nature, you have colors, okay? Colors come in all sorts of forms. I'm a certain color, you're a certain color, the grass is a certain color, the plants down the street are a different color, right? All different things, all different colors. So you have colors, then you have macronutrients, right? We understand that most things are made up of some sort of glucose, some sort of fat, and some sort of protein, right? So those macronutrients are what most people talk about. Then the third portion of that is food groups, right? So we break foods down as nutrition specialists into, you have fruits, vegetables, meats, you have nuts, seeds, and oils, which fall into the fats category. Then you have grains and starches that fall into carbohydrates. So when you take all of those things, those are different food groups. Then we talk about, okay, well, how do I prepare those foods? And that's where the artistic ability of a chef comes in, right? Or just having fun and finding out different ways to make recipes or present different foods. So these four main things make up this huge ecosystem that we have living inside of our gut. So I made a little smaller board here, and I said, okay, well, if we took that wide spectrum of colors, and we broke it down into macronutrients, and then we took those macronutrients into actual food groups, and then we talked about how they can actually be broken down and cooked or prepared for us to eat. There's so many different things that we can get going inside of our bodies. So when someone says, well, I don't eat a certain food group. Okay, well now, if I took someone and they said they don't eat grains, right? And I said, all right, boom, no more of that. Does that circular ecosystem look like it's in balance anymore?
Right.
Right?
Perhaps you draw like a center dot, and are you straying from the center?
Yeah, right.
Dylan, something tells me your conversation is leading towards balance and experiencing all aspects of the spectrum.
Absolutely.
So if we had to nitpick X's and O's of food, if someone is always eating hamburgers, then their only protein source is red meat.
Valid.
If they're only eating bread, then their source of carbohydrates is dominantly in these right.
Yeah, these processed grains and
food,
starches,
exactly.
right?
So you can see where we're going with this balance and experiencing all aspects of the food spectrum for balanced ecosystem.
Yep. And now you take someone and they say, well, I eat vegetables, right? So say vegetables is another correlation here, but all of a sudden they don't eat enough red vegetables. Okay. Well, we just cut out a piece of that pie, another part of the actual
Subdivisions.
ecosystem. Exactly. Now I say, okay, well, I eat vegetables, but I've never had a fermented vegetable. Well, that's a different way to prepare that food. So fermented vegetables all of a sudden cuts out a different part of the ecosystem, because that is going to bring different things into the gut. So it can get complicated, and it can be hard to kind of display in a one size fits all kind of annotation or animation. A good way to think about it could also be a tree. Okay, if the seeds of that tree are all the colors of foods, right? And then the main bulk of that tree, the trunk, is your macronutrients. Mm-hmm. Now you take the trunk, and the branches are your different food groups. And all of a sudden the leaves and the things that come off of those branches are the different ways to prepare your foods, right? If I took away any section of those tree leaves, that's taking away fermented foods. If I don't eat meats, all right, well, I just took out a food group. Okay, I don't get enough of this macronutrient. I just cut the tree trunk in half. I don't eat any of these colors, or I'm imbalanced in colors. Does that look like a flourishing tree now?
It doesn't. Or you could even say, using the same analogies of the tree, is that every time a leaf falls, that's an imbalanced aspect of your nutrition intake. So would you rather your tree or your bush looking plentiful, or would you rather it looking scarce?
Absolutely. So
right.
With Noble coming up, right, and we want to teach you not only how to be rigid and focused and disciplined in your approach to food, but we want to teach you how to have a good balance of food intake throughout those 30 days, because as I just mentioned, there are endless amounts of real food that you can eat. And now you take that food and you understand, well, there's so many different ways I can prepare it. And then you think about the pairings. I can have green vegetables with this meat, and I can prepare it that way with this herb. And all of a sudden you're like, wow, I didn't realize that there was so many options outside of things that are boxed, things that are canned, and things that come in bags.
Very much like we do here with exercise with gravity and oxygen, how we take principles of movement and scientific aspects of endurance and strength, and we mix and match and cocktail it, and now our combinations of programming are endless. Yeah. Now you're creating endless programming creativity within the way that you become a gourmet of your own food.
Absolutely. And your relationship with that food plays a big part. And when you can say, well, now I understand it, and I understand where it's coming from, and all the different ways that I can actually get it into my body and have it benefit me, it's an absolute game changer. And that's what Noble is all about. That 30-day commitment to learn, get educated, be disciplined, and then take those skills and practices towards a healthier lifestyle overall.
I think this is a highly important and very imperative topic that most people, if you are into fitness, need to engage, because if fitness requires fuel and energy, you got to learn how to give yourself a proper ecosystem of fueling that thermodynamic car, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. As a reminder, once again, this Noble challenge that we have, learning more from Dylan and all of our team in regards to your 30-day accountability, teaching you tools beyond those 30 days. We begin this Saturday. There's still time to sign up. Thank you, Dylan, for... That was so impactful that even the board is ready. Awesome. Be on the lookout, guys, for our next episode of Turf Talk Tuesday next week. Thank you, Dylan, and for everyone here at the Go House. Good energy always wins.
Adios.